Good morning, everybody. It is Two Queers in the Truck, our first show of October, and got a little Santana playing here in the background.
Sounds good.
Thomas, a good early 2000s hit, and
yeah,
you couldn't be for at least 2 years. And I've said this before, but it bears repeating. Pretty much anywhere in the vicinity of San Antonio, Texas, on any radio station, this song played. Yeah. I mean, you couldn't go to a ball game. You couldn't go to probably a religious service and not hear this song. Like, this was, I mean, Santana is, it's a huge, Hispanic Latinx city. I mean, it's the majority of the citizens there, and of course they love Santana. I mean, Carlos Santana is a guitar god. I mean, he'll be if he didn't the rock and roll.
Don't you think, Jen, that this song kind of brought?
Don't
you think this song kind of also brought Santana's music into like younger people?
Well, I think it reintroduced it to people that were younger, Generation X and millennials. Especially because it had Rob Thomas on there, which he was really, really big at the time as doing the vocals, the guest vocals on that particular track. And it just, I mean, the song's called Smooth, but it really is just a smooth pop rock song that just, of course, obviously features, the guitar lead on it, and it was just phenomenal. But, it just, and I think it took him into the mainstream for people that didn't know his earlier works from the 70s and early 80s. And, they're getting reintroduced. It's kind of like Cher releases a hit, once every 5 to 8 years. You just go, oh, yeah, she's still out there,
Yeah.
She brings them into the fold of Cher, and Dolly does the same thing. Dolly will repop a song like she just repopped the 9 to 5 album with a younger singer, I think a few years ago, and re-released the songs, but with a current pop star. And just, it's smart. These old pros, that's why they stay around. That's why they, Cher and Dolly Parton and, Santana and all these people that have been around in the music business 40 plus years. Madonna, same thing. She keeps reinventing her music. We're starting to see that pattern with Lady Gaga now that she's gone way past a decade of topping the charts. She'll do an album with Tony Bennett, the old crooner that most people don't even realize how old he is. He's like in his well into his 90s. And she does a whole, old school, Frank Sinatra type album with him, and just not only does she reinvent herself, but also brings a new dimension to Tony Bennett. Now he's performing with Lady Gaga, so it's kind of, I love it for him too, and he just, when they were doing the live performances, especially around New Year's that year, you can tell he's just having the time of his life. He never expected he would do an album with a international pop star like Lady Gaga, and that is just right on that edge. And you got old Tony Bennett, you got his little gold chains around his neck and his wrist, wearing nice suits and looking all gangster dapper and just rocking it out with Lady Gaga and her latex dresses and glam and all that. And just, it's pretty amazing. But anyway, we're going to get right into it. The first prize for I'm a Fucking Idiot award goes to Florida Republicans in the House and Senate. Literally all 16 House of Representative Republicans voted against sending aid to Florida. Now, I'll repeat that one more time.
What was this?
16 House Republicans in our National Congress voted against the Florida aid package to Florida for the weekend. The emergency aid bill.
I did not know that.
One of the senators voted no, and the other one just didn't show up for the vote. So 17 out of the 18 representatives.
Who didn't show up? Marco Rubio?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I think he was.
Right.
I think he was in Cancun with Cruz. Well, Cruz is doing some kind of 17 or 20 state tour or some shit like that. I guess he figured if Trump can do it, he may not be able to do all 50 states like Trump does, since he's about half a wit of Trump. So he was going to do half with his unattractive wife and his dog that he left in the cold. But anyway, he's trying to tour and he's trying to mimic the Trump tour, it seems like, to go help other Republicans in these other states where they're getting whipped because they are taking away women's right to be able to have abortions when they want to. Just wackos. But anyway, literally, and of course, second prize goes to the Republican voters in Florida that keep voting for jackasses like this. Y'all are fucking idiots too. And if y'all don't fire some of these fools that are ruining your state, Florida's always been a little wacky, but kind of a cute wacky. Now it's just a cesspool of stupidity. It's just like, guys, get it together, or nobody's going to come see Disney and employ you guys. Like you're going to be Mississippi soon. Like you're going to be, you don't want to go down that road. You don't want to be paying, $30 million or whatever they gave Brett Favre. You don't want some washed up football player cashing in on COVID money or something like that. My gosh. In fact, I think one of the reasons the Republicans voted against it too from that state was I think they put very specific language on there and how it could be spent because of the little, the first class flight to Martha's Vineyard with those 50 people that cost $12 million. Maybe preempted the Democrats that wrote the bill and said, maybe should put some little caveats in there. Like it can't go to another trip to Martha's Vineyard, or maybe next time they send them to Hawaii. I don't know. If you're going to be a dick and you're going to grandstand, why send them to Martha's Vineyard where it's a very seasonal place and they have a true winter because it's in the state of Massachusetts, even though it's an island off the coast? Next time, just pop for a private flight to Hawaii. At least when you're poor there, there's a lot of easy jobs to get there. And if you're going to be poor somewhere, it might as well be Hawaii. You can just sleep on the beach. What a dick move to send them to a place that's about to have their winter shut down. Hawaii's just as unaffordable as Martha's Vineyard, but at least you can grab some pineapples off some trees and go hang. Poor there, it still sucks to be poor anywhere. But if I'm going to be poor somewhere, it might as well be Hawaii where it never gets cold.
Hey, Jenny, by the way, pineapples don't come on a tree. They're actually in a plant on the ground. I didn't know that.
I did. But I
did you? Because I actually used to think that pineapples were from a tree, but then I saw them selling pineapple plants, and they're like pumpkin plants. They come from the ground. I was like, what is that? That's how I was like, it shows you how from Texas I am. I didn't even know.
But I literally, it's just funny to say off a tree, because most people have not been to a place that actually had pineapples. So
but did you notice that? I thought it was real interesting when after the hurricane, and unfortunately, it did so much disaster in Florida. But after the hurricane, when Dick Suckus, who you have so gracefully named, when he was asking for aid, for people to help, immediately people went to social media and says, don't donate to Florida, donate to the Red Cross, donate to thing, because they won't use it. They're afraid they're going to use it for whatever reason that, who knows what they're going to use it for.
Yeah. Even Floridians were saying, don't send money to Dacus. What? You have really set a low bar for credibility when you're that big of a jackass, when people are saying, even though we need the money, don't send it to this fool because he'll charter another flight to, I don't know, to South France or something. I don't know where that fool's going to send people. And a bunch of other new arrivals are going to be sitting there. I said, I don't think this is where they meant to send us, but I don't see any jobs or housing waiting for us either. Like they're just going to drop us off on here on the tarmac. But anyway,
but you know what the irony is, Jenny, about this hurricane thing and all of his rhetoric? After this hurricane, they're going to have to clean up. They're going to have to rebuild. 40 to 50% of people in the construction business are usually undocumented because they need labor. They need people to do the construction. They're going to be bombarded, and they're going to want the individuals to help rebuild these old people. These people aren't going to build their own homes. They're going to hire people to help build their stuff. And so they're going to need these individuals. And so all this rhetoric is going to come back to haunt them.
Oh, absolutely.
I'd be interested to hear what.
Just like all the undocumented labor that was used to build Mar-a-Lago there in South Florida. And of course, all the contractors, the small businesses he screwed over as well. Trump did. So there we go. But forgot to set the timer, but we're right at about 6 minutes anyway for this section. And I think we beat it into the ground anyway. The next subject is quacky Dr. Oz that's coming to be more and more freakier by the day. And I thought the incest subject was weird enough. New article came out, and I just noticed it on film day. So full disclosure, we film on Mondays and we drop our shows on Wednesdays. Mm-hmm. Dr. Oz is, I don't know if it's a pharmaceutical or whole health company or whatever makes all his scam lotions and potions that he hawks on his TV show. That all of a sudden there's miracle cures. You can eat like a pig and still lose weight. But speaking of pigs, they experimented on animals. They killed 329 dogs, including a whole litter of puppies, 661 rabbits, and 31 pigs in a short stretch before they got busted doing it. But literally, I mean, you talk about Nazi experimental, whatever you want to call it. What a cruel psychopath. And you knew Dr. Oz knew. But I guess they were testing different things on them for their little.
So what is he has he commented on it or?
Oh, I don't think he's talked about it at all. This just started coming out today.
Okay, I see.
I saw the Fetterman post about it, and then I saw a few other people. And then there was a big article on Twitter that specified the amounts of slaughter of these animals and the really painful deaths they had as he experimented on these things, or I guess his lab did. But he's the CEO of the lab and supposedly a doctor. He has a medical license. I don't know.
Are you talking about Mehmet?
Yeah, Mehmet. Dr. Osballs. I mean, good Lord, like this guy, shouldn't have run for office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I always knew you always knew he was a quack. You know, like he's just a chromosome away from being the My Pillow guy. But good gosh, like some of these old clips. I mean, they're not that old, really. Like some are just a few years old. But him talking about incest and basically insinuating I'd probably sleep with my daughters, but they said they don't like the way I smell. You know, and just which brings up a whole. I'm like, well, that's what you're implying that subject got broached from you to your daughters is if they don't like the way you smell. That's going down in Arkansas, Mississippi dirt road.
But Jenny, Jenny, you're famous for saying, what did you expect? I mean, just looking at him, you knew some crazy stuff was going to come out.
Oh, he's freaky deaky.
You know, he just, you know.
He on his show, and I've watched his show years ago. You knew he was a certified freak, which, I'm not going to shame anybody up until the killing of puppies and trying to sleep with your daughters. But you always knew, and this all the lawsuits that have been levied on him from different hoaxy products and over-promising and under-delivering, which all those multi-level scam, you drink this coconut Balsacian tea friggin' deal, and it's going to make you look 10 feet tall and bulletproof, type crap. We all know that, like, he's made a career. He's made $100 million plus off scamming people with these lotions and potions. I mean, his show is predicated on selling vitamins and quacky stuff. Like, he literally is a 2022 snake oil salesman. That's. I mean, and of course that's why Trump loves him. But speaking of that, I'm surprised. As dumb as the Trump voter is, that instead of swiping the documents that's going to put him in prison, why didn't he just leave the documents and start up a ministry? I mean, he already does the tent shows.
Yeah.
He already knows they're gullible. I'm so shocked because they'd be giving him even more money, like do the build the wall mission, build this, hand out some, tanning solution to the poor, unfortunate people of South Beach or whatever cause he makes up at the time. Would he have been better off instead of brokering our national secrets to Russia and the Saudi Arabians allegedly? To me, he already knew the evangelicals love it. They like buy the Trump onesies and the Gazenta hats and all that. I mean, why did they just slap a church label and make it a nonprofit? He paid no tax and get himself a little. He could be Reverend President Trump.
Well, because remember, there was a book that came out that said that he thought that the evangelicals were idiots.
But that's his primary voter. I mean, that's the core MAGA voter, is the barely drooling, mouth breather, rural fool and city fool that really thinks he's a combination of Rambo, John Wayne, and Jesus. And they literally think he is the second coming. They think he's going to save the world. He's going to protect people from pedophiles, the bad guys and the terrorists. Of course, people of color.
Hey, Jen. Hey, question. Hey, question. Do you think that, this pedophile thing that has been blown around this last year, do you think that what we should do is just keep using that term to make it so crazy that it becomes like the word, like a word that just like, I don't know, because right now it seems like just them saying pedophile puts everyone on the defensive. So how can you respond to people who just use that word so irresponsibly? And you understand what I'm trying to say? How do we diminish the word? Okay.
Right after this break, and we'll come back and I will answer that question, actually.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching us on Two Queers in a Truck. Don't forget, you can watch us anytime at your leisure on our video podcast platforms like Facebook and YouTube. But you can also listen to us, either this show or any of our past shows, on our audio podcast platforms like Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and all of the other ones. So once again, thank you for watching Two Queers in a Truck. I hope you enjoy our show.
And we are back with some more Two Queers in a Truck. And right before we go to the third topic, real quick, I think the only way you answer it is as soon as they make the accusations, because it makes the circles. You hear it die down for a little while, then it, because they have all their little moral outreach, and their Koch brothers say, well, we need to message this for a week because, Trump's in trouble on this or whatever. MTG's getting a divorce. She's got to go flip out somewhere.
That's crazy.
And so when they get punched across the face, they immediately do this very uniform messaging, like you see OAN, Fox News, the whole propaganda machine, just like the Nazis did, punch back with a wild accusation. So there's always a new moral outrage. It's either drag queens or queers of some type, or people of color, and Lizzo playing the flute, and they're just it's just wholesale kookery and chicanery. And I don't think the pedophiles. I think the moment you do, you already have pre-made commercials and billboards, and you post up everywhere all the Republican pedophiles, and
Good
you
point.
literally just a Gatling gun like Bobbert's convicted sex offender husband. I think you take Dennis Hassard, Jim Jordan, that's sitting in Congress right now, and you just do buys in their home states and then everywhere else, and you just run the whole. There's a ton of Republican pedophiles, convicted ones and accused ones too. And you just like Matt Gaetz, you put his big old 8 head up on a giant billboard, go, I wonder what a 17-year-old was doing on that private plane with him and his buddy, and just put it out there. You don't use them in anything, going, it's perfectly normal. Just make a kooky commercial where you make a model head of Gaetz, his giant old watermelon head just wobbling back and forth, and go, I wonder why he got it in a plane with a 17-year-old minor. And then a clip of his very young former sister-in-law going, yeah, he came on to me too. And just bam, I mean, just loaded up with all the pedo ring holders, the real weirdos. And then probably a clip of that wacko from North Carolina that stormed the pizza place in Washington, D.C. with an assault rifle. I didn't realize it didn't have the basement after all. But anyway, just like his grandma's basement that he lives in. But so speaking of that, is a good segue into literally the wacko response to Lizzo, a amazing musical talent in so many different ways. Playing
Jen, you're gonna have to explain. You're gonna have to explain this one because I saw a little blurb, but I wasn't able to. I thought I didn't understand what was this all about.
So she was, I believe it was the Library of Congress or somewhere in Washington, D.C. She was getting a tour. And what people don't know is that she's actually a classic flutist as well. She is a major props. She's like, I didn't know this, and I'm a Lizzo fan. I had no idea that she knew how to play a flute, but like she's a world-class flutist as well. And they handed her James Madison's, I guess, glass flute, and she belted out a few notes, a few songs or something with this. And Republicans just tried to drag her on it. Just you for one, you got a white, person of history, and you got this really, popular pop rock star, Lizzo, woman of color, super curvy, belting out things. And of course, they're losing their mind. They don't even know what to think. And of course, just like the Black Mermaid thing, they're like, oh my gosh, now she's playing with James Madison's, flute and just right in front of them, and just they're losing their minds over nothing. And they said, oh, she didn't play that good. Well, first of all, the flute that she's the most fluent on is like a C note, and this was like a D note. The second thing is the thing's like 200 years old. She's never even played on it. I heard her play. It's all over Twitter. You can't go to your Twitter page and not see something about Lizzo and this flute. But more or less, it's just, Republicans universally probably can't play the flute, but they sure can play the hell out of the dog whistle. I mean, you could just smell the racism and narcissism in the air. Like they were losing their ever-lipping mind over Lizzo playing a flute. Now, if this had been, I don't know, whatever, I'm trying to think of a rocker that's a Republican. I guess Ted Nugget got out there with his AR-15 and was playing the skin
Kid Rock. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kid Rock, one of those wackos, one of those burnout cases. If they got out there with their ARs and their rebel flag hats and they played the flute, you would just be going, I want to buy that album, and I'm gonna go kiss my wife cousin. And they'd have been screaming, Brandon, and get you some and all that. But of course, it was a woman of color, insanely talented, contemporary young lady, just a world-class musical artist, and they can't be happy for her. Or at the very least, just don't even say anything. There's nothing. They made it a bigger deal than it had to be. Like,
but Jenny, haven't we?
nobody would have even cared that Lizzo
But haven't we
James Madison's flute.
haven't we already acknowledged that for some reason these MAGA people, they are just, man, they just everything they complain about.
Well, I mean, but think about it, Christian. If you had no policies, you had no popular agendas whatsoever, everything they hate are popular issues for Americans. Like over 70% of the American public supports reproductive rights. Almost 80% approve of student loan reform and helping young and middle-aged people out with student loan debt, predatory student loan debt, I might add. Like all of our positions are wildly popular. That's why we take them, and because they're also typically they're wildly popular because most people agree it's the right thing to do. That's the reason why the majority of Americans are fairly smart, about 70% of us. And then the others are the MAGAs. It's the
They're just loud.
And they're just loud. It's stupid. And then you got to take some of the equation out for the kids. And so there's about 15% that are just full on stupid. They just flop around like a bunch of impotent jerks. Every time a person of color, a woman, a homosexual, anybody does anything except stay in their lane and just go step and fetch, because we don't want to see no homosexuals on our TV or any people of color. We don't mind seeing them make their cheeseburgers for them. They don't want them going on strike or anything like that, and so they can't get their Amazon rubber dicks and their cheeseburgers from McDonald's. But God forbid Lizzo belts out a pretty good rendition of some songs on a 200-year-old glass flute. Just and the mermaid thing, I'll never get over that either. But just the moral outrage, just the stupidity. But they have to. They have nowhere to go because they're not smart enough to embrace progress. And they've already put themselves on such a high ground. Where are they going to go? I guess they can float out to the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
But what are just a useless bunch of people? Just from the top down, from Trump down to the bottom of the food chain with MTG. Just if they fell off the face of the earth, nobody would miss them except that cult. It's just like Rush Limbaugh. Nobody talks about Rush Limbaugh anymore because he brought nothing to society. He was a cruel, stupid man and just a useless human being. He brought nothing but misery and hatred to the airwaves and popularized this mouth-breathing MAGA, attitude. But now you don't see him even get memorialized by the MAGAs anymore. They're like, oh, he's dead. Let's go on. And nobody's going to remember him. I mean, he got the send-off he deserved. Like they just spent about 1 or 2 days talking about him on Fox News and all the secret channels and all that. And then it just, okay, bye. But anyway, Kim got caught pitching a product that she shouldn't have been doing without disclosing. So Kim Kardashian got penalized by the SEC because she was supposed to disclose that she was a paid spokesperson. She got paid, a 6-figure paycheck to do this, more or less a social media infomercial about this cryptocurrency thing. And because she didn't disclose that she was a paid agent for it, that she was representing that product for money, like she tried to make it look like this was just one of her, which I don't think Kim does anything without getting paid, but that's why she's so wealthy, is that everything's about product placement. But legally, when it comes to like cryptocurrency and things like that, the SEC frowns upon, faking this. Oh, I really love this crypto, whatever. and ooh, it's so smooth on my skin, or whatever. and so she got busted for it. She has to pay a little over $1 million fine to the SEC for unethically pitching without a disclosure, which is a really big deal. I just thought it was interesting that somebody that has such a huge entourage, and she's got people that help her put on the shoes and nannies, and got a small army of staffers that she doesn't pay very well, is known to be cheap. And
you would think she'd have someone on her team that exactly
would know then, or or whatever, her manager or agent, which are typically attorneys, would say, well, if you do this falls under these rules, and if you pitch it on your Instagram where she's got millions upon, the Kardashian empire with all of them, they're all uber wealthy, they all got fuck you money, except for the SEC, which of course said, no, we got fuck you lawyers, extract $1 million out of it, which is nothing for her, but still, they said, no, girl, you got to disclose that. There's got to be a disclosure in the advertisement that you got paid to do this, and it wouldn't hurt her at all, because everybody knows she is not going to sit there and talk about a product.
Exactly. Yeah, that was just that's just sloppy.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Exactly. Yeah,
because that because she is so well known, and then because it's usually fashion and perfumes and makeup lines, and it's more trendy stuff. And then also she's talking about crypto. Not that she's not smart enough to know about currencies and stuff, but it's just an unusual mix for her, which is going to raise a red flag. And then the SEC is looking at really trying to regulate this new Wild West of all the new currencies and NFTs, and there's just all these emerging markets. Just like 100 years ago, part of our economic struggles was the crash of the stock market, and and maybe like going out on a little too far and not regulating, how things are done. And so, the SEC was created a lot of new rules and regulations, which don't necessarily get followed. But I just think it's interesting that a pop star like that, somebody that's such a viral, trendy type person, honestly,
I was surprised. I was surprised too when I saw that. I was like, that was kind of like what you said. First thing I thought of was that was sloppy. That was dumb. Someone at her level of spokesmanship, like you said, people know when she's talking about something. She's very likely, so it wouldn't have hurt her to say,
yeah.
By the way, I just, I'm a new spokesperson for crypto.
Anything I see that she's doing product placement on, I already know she's paid. She ain't gonna do that for free. She's not gonna, say, hey, going down to Billy Bob's Burger Barn because I just love their greasy cheeseburgers. Unless Billy Bob is, doing a something, or either unlimited baskets of fries or something, but it's just kind of bizarre that somebody that well versed in business, that is a businesswoman, that has graduated from law school, and has a fairly high IQ in business, but she does do dumb things. I mean, was it this year or last year when she said she was like shaming people that don't make good money? She's got to get up and go to work. It was kind of cracking back at I think mostly women trying to freeload off men, or I don't know what she was trying to say that time. A lot of women pushed back, and they started saying, well, yeah, a lot of your staff have quit over the years because you are such a cheapskate, and you're worth over, almost $1 billion. And like, hey, you don't need to be. And then she had to kind of step back a little bit because they get a little full of themselves. They get a little narcissistic.
They start believing their BS.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Chris, their step parent is Caitlyn Jenner. So you got the narcissism of Caitlyn Jenner and the very, very like foot and mouth deal, and they all do it. I mean, between all the, the kind of the black facing and the even a lot of black activists was like, your stuff's a little cringy. It's a little racist, a little cultural appropriation from time to time, and and said some really cringy things on their shows. But it's just kind of bizarre. It's not the first time that they've put their foot in their mouths or other body parts inside other body parts. It seems like, but not always the sharpest tools in the shed, and not always the most aware people. Definitely not woke, that's for sure. They're not even close. Like, the woke police won't have to worry about the Kardashians anytime soon, or Caitlyn Jenner and her failed political aspirations. Good gosh, nothing better than a transgender Trumper. Like, there you go. Anyway, we are up against our next break, and we'll be right back with some more Two Queers.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching us on Two Queers in a Truck. Don't forget, you can watch us anytime at your leisure on our video podcast platforms like Facebook and YouTube, but you can also listen to us, either this show or any of our past shows, on our audio podcast platforms like Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and all of the other ones. So once again, thank you for watching Two Queers in a Truck. I hope you enjoy our show.
The truck. And we are back. Well, speaking of woke, M&Ms are back in the news, like the candy. The purple ones, I guess, supposedly are woke M&Ms or whatever. And speaking of moral outrage, and the OAN network is big mad about it. They did a whole expose on the purple M&Ms, and I guess the drag queens weren't enough, and a couple other moral outrages. So they had to do a whole story on woke purple M&Ms, because Putin and nuclear weapons in the Ukraine. And so this isn't big enough for them. So they got to go after a big target like an M&M. So apparently, the purple M&Ms are controversial. They must be promoting some kind of, I don't know if they're making kids gay or purple, or they're starting to turn into little Barneys or something. But these little purple M&Ms are making the MAGA nation go nuts. And the purple M&Ms banned, and you're going on all kinds of campaigns against the purple M&Ms. So the purple M&Ms is one of the flavors of the day. That's a very popular target right now. What
do you think? Hey, Jen, what do you think these MAGA people? They spend so much energy and time on things like this. Do you wonder what it's like to maybe live with someone like that?
Oh, I wouldn't. I mean, if I got in a really bad car accident and say they took half my brain away, and after that I got back into the dating pool and I dated a MAGA and fell in love with them and moved in with them, I would think it would be a cross between Gitmo and living with Jim Baker, or even Falwell Jr. I think it would be somewhere hell on earth, maybe. I mean, but not even. I mean, hell has pretty good parties, what I've heard. So yeah, I think it would be a lot like living with Jim Baker or Jerry Falwell Jr. I think it'd be brutal. I can't even imagine. I don't really have any friends that are true MAGAs. I don't.
Yeah, neither do I.
I've got some associates. I
know some people, but I don't. I don't hang around.
Personal. Yeah, I can't do it. When they start to open their trap, I'm like, not around me. I've already been cured of religion. I don't need to get proselytized. Now, I do enjoy confronting them in certain situations, like Dirty Santa and people like that, because I think in the wild it's pretty funny to confront some of these shade tree preachers and weirdos and the great unwashed. I think, especially when they're confronted with their own stupidity, or you even turn their own non-knowledge of the Bible on them, and start quoting verses and laying on the love your neighbor and seeing them flip out. They're like, you're supposed to be mad at what I'm saying. I'm not mad. I don't think you're serious. For me, when these morons get mad about purple M&Ms, drag queens, reading books, which I can see why they get mad about that, because most of them can't read. So they see these fancy dancy drag queens with these educations actually being able to read and do drag and look fabulous. One, they're never going to look that fabulous. And two, the majority of the MAGA nation can't read. Because if they could read, they would never be falling for the stupid shit that they're falling for. They just wouldn't. If they had any IQ and any critical thinking skills whatsoever, them and books don't meet very often. None of that big city fancy learning. We don't want any of that. We don't want no fancy schools in our way. We want to be able to just stay with the thoughts we have and just stick with that, or whatever the grand poopah, Mr. Spray Tan says, this is what goes.
So there was a article in the Washington Post this weekend that I saw online that said that the polling that's being done for this midterm elections may be under counting or under the MAGA people. And I completely disagree with it, because I don't know a MAGA person who doesn't tell you their opinion.
Right.
I don't know that there is, because when Trump was elected, there was apparently some Republicans that voted for him but weren't vocal about it. Those people are no longer MAGA. They're like Liz Cheney's. You know what I mean? They are. So this theory that it's probably spread by MAGA people. We're the silent majority. We're the silent majority. I don't know a MAGA person that's silent. So, I mean, yeah. Well, they're not a majority. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're like, even within their own party, they're a subgroup.
If people vote the way they did in 2020, Republicans are in trouble. And they didn't have over half the population pissed off at them the way they are now. And
exactly.
I think with all the new people that have registered, specifically women, and you saw it again in Kansas, you saw it in Alaska, ever since Dobbs, everything's been going against the MAGAs. And the MAGAs are realizing, careful what you wish for. They've spent 50 years trying to control women and overturn Roe. I have no doubt, or I'm hoping, if it doesn't happen now, if women don't wake up and not vote against their own interests, we're in a lot of trouble. This is going to be ugly. I mean, we will be in a lot of trouble. There will be, you talk about restriction of voting rights, it'll be a free-for-all if we don't hold the House and the Senate. But I fully expect to see women out in droves. And they should have always been out in droves. They should have been out in droves in 2016, and we wouldn't have this problem. But we're going to see how things drop. The next thing is just it's not even it's always in the news. There's always talk about it, and they're making a lot of big deal about the fentanyl drug, the new moral outrage drug.
Yeah.
But in general, we a lot of times don't pull back and look at things, and I've been pretty introspective tonight, talking about the Beasley race and the the changes of our political structure here in North Carolina, especially, and we're looking more through a social justice lens. But this is another social justice thing: the cost of the drug war that we don't talk about. And we always talk about how bad drugs are and all that. And we sound like the teacher off South Park, going, drugs are bad, okay. But we don't really have a discussion and the cost of it. So just in financial costs, for example, per year, Just non-medical opioid use alone costs this country $188 billion. Total, including mass incarceration to society, we spend about $1.2 trillion on the devastation of mass incarceration, the prison to high school to pipeline, prison pipeline, the whole 9 yards. But we're talking about money that's wasted on the drug war, mass incarceration, but specifically because a third of all prisoners are because of the drug war. That one, we saw a massive amount of states in the last 10 years legalize marijuana and decriminalize it. Yet the federal government has not. And Colorado, I believe, was the first to legalize recreational marijuana. And we didn't see that state collapse. Like, we didn't see it like everybody was saying with reefer madness, and it's a gateway drug, and, Colorado's just going to fall apart, and, it's just going to be a hell. The Democrats don't know what they're doing. When Chris, they legalized it, not only did they have more money for schools than they've ever had before, because that's what they taxed it, just like you do with liquor. It was a great tax revenue, and they're friggin' just a bumper crop for Colorado, just a huge financial thing for them. But we didn't have no outbreak of criminal activity. In fact, criminal activity probably dropped in that state. It stabilized that state. But I find it interesting how the party of responsibility, the Republicans, especially physical responsibility, never talks about how mass incarceration and cost of the drug war cost this country, and that the trillions that we've spent on this is just horrible. Not to mention the racist component of the drug war as well. And and it's very bizarre how they never bring that up. That never even comes up when we're talking about budgets, and how we just keep rubber stamping the DEA budget, never questioning it. Went up, way up, and during Trump, it's just the DEA alone is right at $40 billion a year just for that, and we don't say a word about that. And just think about
this is one of those. No, this is one of those topics that's really difficult for me to kind of comprehend, because before what I've noticed is the MAGA people, they're blaming Biden or Democrats for fentanyl from it coming from China and coming across the border. That's their talking points. Right. They're not accepting, but for me, I'm like, well, how about just accepting personal responsibility for doing it? Yeah. We wouldn't have drugs if you didn't do it. Yeah. I mean, you can't sell so for me, it is difficult, because this is a very different conversation than we were having when the early days of the drug war, when it was specifically targeting Black and brown or more poor area people who are doing marijuana, maybe crack, the crack epidemic. They were not complaining about it coming over. They were complaining about the Black people doing it. And now that white people are seem to be more addicted to fentanyl and opioids, they're like, okay, now we got to help them. And so it's difficult for me, because I want to remind people the hypocrisy of how badly we treated other people that were on drugs, but suddenly, because this is impacting a different type of population, suddenly we want to help them, even though I want to help them. You know what I mean? And so it is.
It's what it again. It's just like what we talked about in the first show. It's just like with churches too. It's a problem they don't want to fix. Like, they don't want to see the profitability of mass incarceration. It's a big business. The third largest corporation in the world is ones that build detention centers. It's a company out of South Africa.
Okay.
Drug wars and these morality wars are huge. They're huge businesses. These detention centers are massive. I mean, and it's a massive amount of pork barrel spending, completely unnecessary. We don't need large detention centers. Mass incarceration is also a massive failure. And this idea of being tough on crime, when drugs specifically, the misuse of drugs obviously is a medical issue. It's like finding a moral failing with somebody with cancer or somebody that has a heart. It may be you've eaten greasy cheeseburgers for 30 years, 40 years, and supersized the fries and stuff.
Sure.
But you don't see Republicans flopping around on the ground about that, and costing our medical system more because we eat bad and we eat too much fast food. But so you don't see them having a war on fast food, for example. They don't run into Taco Bell's lobby. You can't serve that. That's going to kill people. Yet the number one and number two causes of death in America are cardiac, heart-related, and cancer. And a big part of all that body inflammation, that body damage to the cardiac system comes from our diets, from our food. It kills way more than drugs will ever do. Like fentanyl doesn't. Fentanyl is just the new moral outrage drug of choice, just like crack cocaine was in the 80s and the early 90s. And again, that was a racist target. But these are all racist targets. These are all about, like, because it's coming, I guess, from China and other countries that are white countries, European countries. So there's got to be a moral outrage about the source. And of course, they probably wouldn't create a new leg of the drug war in China or Asia or something, too. I'm sure there's a racist component in it. There always is. But the reality is, in this, we even talked about this with Senator Daines from, was it Montana or wherever he's from, and he's talking about, we don't need anybody importing that Mexican meth. We've got our homegrown meth here. It's just how stupid they are. One, they know what they're saying is wrong. So the drug war was created to create segregation again and create trauma to communities of color. It was designed to target certain Americans. It was never designed to wipe out smoking funny things. Because human beings are always going to self-medicate. They're always going to smoke funny things. You can look at all the pyramids in Egypt, all the pyramids in China, and on their walls, and the Aztecs as well, and the Mayans, they all smoked some Florida wacky tobacco way back in the day. That's the whole reason why Marco Polo went over to China, was not to get a couple of spices and some noodles for the Italian people, is he's also bringing back, some good old opium, bring that to Europe. They had an opium craze. And, drugs are always going to exist because alcohol is a drug too.
Sure.
And, of course, we have licensed drug dealers called pharmacists. And if you're hurting psychologically or physically, there's a drug for it now. And that's human nature. If we hurt, we need relief because it sucks to hurt, no matter what the hurt is. So people are either going to find a medical solution from a doctor and a pharmacist or a psychotherapist, or they're going to find a street version, in sex and food, alcohol, things that they can access, or street drugs like fentanyl and marijuana and things of that nature. And so we can either license it, regulate it through the medical system and do it the right way and the safe way, or we can do it the shitty way and kill more people, hurt more people, divide communities, and waste a shit ton of money. And as we found out with Colorado, big business can actually make more money off legalizing and regulating drugs, and a ton more taxes so we can spend more money on bombs instead of books and bullets for the police. But anyway, you make more money by not fighting the drug industry. The drug industry is always going to exist. There's always going to be sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's just human nature. No matter where you get it from, the source doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Drug kingpins from all around the world aren't sending drugs because we don't consume them anyway.
Yeah.
We're the number one importer of street drugs in the world. We do more drugs than any other nation in the world.
Yeah.
Because we love to do everything to extremes.
Yeah.
We're just like Die Hard. We're like, shooting our guns in the air, yelling out "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker!" And look at us, we're Americans, and we speak American, and we love our beer. We love our red, white, and blue thongs and our cowboy hats and our glass flutes. There you go, cold beer, and it's just who we are. And we're a country of extremes. Yeah. We always will be. So we might as well embrace it. Might as well have a doctor selling opium and weed and just regulate it and pharmaceuticalize it and make it a cash flow thing and get rid of mass incarceration. It just doesn't. Most countries don't have the kind of mass incarceration addiction that we have. It just doesn't work. It never has, never will. And put people in chains and little tiny cells just destroys your society. And you talk about irresponsible spending. The drug war is mass incarceration is one of the biggest scams besides the defense budget our government's ever done. Just a waste of money. But anyway, that's our last topic, and it just, I guess, reading all these fentanyl articles and seeing the fake moral outrage of a drug that people don't even know what it is. It just the hair on the fire thing. I was like, nah, fentanyl's not the problem. The supply's not the problem. Supply's never the problem. Yeah. Like you said, if people weren't using it, it wouldn't be here. Nobody would buy it.
Exactly. Yep.
Just like weed. If people didn't like weed, it wouldn't sell.
Yeah.
It's supply and demand. Market forces, the thing they always talk about.
I agree.
Is the same with cold beer. If people didn't like cold beer, there wouldn't be all these breweries everywhere. There wouldn't be any sponsors.
Don't say that. That's terrible.
I mean, half the stadiums would be gone because you would be able to sell cold beer. If people stopped liking cold beer,
that's true.
Then, like the high they get off cold beer. I mean, there wouldn't be no football. There'd be no basketball. There'd be no baseball. They're not building those big stadiums selling Coca-Cola. Cold beer. Makes the world go around. So anyway, that is the end of the Two Queers in a Truck. And it is time to sign off with a little bit of music, if I can get my phone to cooperate.
I've already started dancing.
Send off with a little bit more Santana.
Bye. See you next week.
See you next week.
Bye, boo.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for watching. And I'm on my soapbox this week for sure. Don't need to be in color, though. Anyway, y'all have a
It was such a downer.
And happy October. It's Christian season. Have a great week. Bye, boo. Hello, everybody. We got Two Queers and Trucks, another episode in the can. We appreciate y'all watching and tuning in every week. Hope that you tune in to our podcast, both with Coffee and Pandosi and Two Queers and a Truck. We talked about all kinds of things this week, from white supremacy to Joe Biden calling somebody a son of a bitch to a whole bunch of bull. Thanks for tuning in, and y'all be safe.
Bye, boo-boo.